like 2 days. And
We're
then you'll run out of
good.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings of the Township Council, established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedules a designated time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. We're using an electronic amplifying recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record. We request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your address and name directly to the microphone. The recording device will be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of the minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meeting. Madam Clerk, can I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison?
Present.
Ms. Grace? Here. Mr. Mignot?
Here.
Mrs. Stubbs?
She is ill.
Mrs. Winters? Here. Mrs. Strato? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Carlian?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here.
Mr. Lechner?
He is excused. He contacted me earlier this evening.
Chief Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Trevor?
Here.
We now have our first public portion. This is for agenda items only. Anyone addressing council may speak one time. Once all those wishing to address council have had their turns, they may address council second time. I'll make that ask what was said earlier, not repeating earlier statements. For this public portion, we've allotted 15 minutes. Each speaker is entitled to 3 minutes apiece. Does anyone like to speak on agenda items only? Seeing none, let's go to the first public portion. Ordinance is first reading. Ordinance amending Chapter 81 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Vehicles and Traffic of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. Ordinance 0-20-113. This permits the Gloucester Township Police Department to enforce the code at Blackwood Falls Apartment. This deals with general parking, speed limits, towaway. This is something that in the past that a lot of the complexes have asked for our police department to enforce, and that's section 81-35, regulation and movement and parking of traffic on all other private property. Entertain a motion
So moved.
Second.
on the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Mignot?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes, there will be a second reading and a public hearing at our next meeting on November 23rd for that ordinance. Ordinance 0-20-14, is ordinance authorizing execution of the tax abatement agreement between the Township of Gloucester and Choose Landing LLC for premises block 9708, lot 1C0100, pursuant to C441 PL 1991 NJSA 48 21.1 et sec and ordinance number 0-95. This is for the premises located at 1399 1401 Choose Landing Road. So if you're coming out here on Choose Landing Road, it's the right, that complex, the office complex there. This is the last of the eighth and final project that was started 10 years ago, and this is building 100. All of the other buildings have received abatements. This is for a 5-year abatement on the improvements, not the land. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace?
Yes.
Mr. Mignot?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes, and once again, there will be a second public hearing at the second reading on November 23rd. Next, we have a resolutions of consent agenda. Any council member that would like to have any of the items removed, please speak up. Hearing none, entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Mignot?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. We did have eGov access. I may have misplaced that, but the question was asking about the location of the tax abatement for the ordinance, and that is from Michael D. Francesco, 632 Southwick Road. Was the tax abatement for? How long will it be? And what is being proposed to be built on the site? It has already been built. It is again, building 100, located here on Shoes Landing Road. Tax abatements for the improvements of that property, and is a 5-year tax abatement, 0 the first year, 30 the second year, 50, 70, 90, and then after year 5, they pay full taxes on both the improvements and the land. With that, we'll open up our second public portion. This is for any item that the public chooses to address Township Council. We allot 30 minutes for the public portion. Each speaker is entitled to 5 minutes. Anyone like to speak on the public portion? Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro from the Historic Village of Ariel.
Good evening, Ray.
I think this question has been asked before. When you have questions coming into e-golf that are pertaining to the agenda, is there any reason why some of these questions you do not read before the first public, during the first public portion, to give that e-golf question the probability and possibility of addressing it as an agenda item?
Perhaps when we reorganize in January, Mr. Polidoro will take that under consideration.
Okay. Another question I have, as we go through these budgets every year, and it goes on through April, and sometimes doesn't pass till May or whenever it gets finalized, is there any reason why our government does not approach a budget for the following year in the preparatory time before the following year? A 2020 budget being spoken about, worked out, and finally voted on halfway through the year. You've already done that spending. Most businesses set a budget. Most private entities set a budget. Most households set a budget before the year so that you know what you're going to spend, what's coming in, what's going out. Besides the excuse of New Jersey does it that way, which is a terrible excuse because we're one of the worst states in the union, what other reason do we not do our budget? Did I say something funny? It's painfully clear.
Your worst, all right, go ahead. The worst state in the union. Okay.
Well, as far as taxes and
All right,
budgeting and
okay.
what we spend money on, is there any reason why right around this time now, we're not working on a budget for 2021? And before our administrator answers, I would like my government to answer that question.
Ray, I believe that Mr. Cardis and his department heads are already talking about a budget for next year.
We are.
Talking about it and presenting it to the council.
There are many things that change. We haven't finished this year. There are many things that need to be resolved before the end of the year. You could put something out there, but will we be able to adhere to it when it comes to passing a budget in April?
Do you know how bad that looks? That you're almost halfway through the year when the government is discussing a budget of that pertaining to that year.
Can I?
Yes.
Okay. So a budget has two sides. It has an expenditure side and it has revenue side. The problem is we do not know where we stand with those revenues until the CFO completes the annual financial statement on audit. Typically, that is done in the month of February, but in past years, the state has extended the deadline for that, and it's come in somewhere in the vicinity of March. Without that document, I would not venture to guess on what a budget would look like. That's exactly what it would be. It would be a guess.
All right, and then tell me why it's February when all those numbers are being talked about that you can't do October, November, December to lead into budget conversation within.
We work on the appropriations now. We're doing that. The salary schedules. We're out for bid on trash, so that's a big ticket item we don't know about. Health insurance, we pretty much know where we're at with that. Debt service, we know where we're at with that. The expenditure side, we can get quite a bit done. And again, that solid waste is going to be a big component of this thing.
But I would not put any revenues in there until we know what those revenues are. And that document is the Holy Grail. That's the document that tells us what we have available to apply to the budget.
Isn't that something that you deal with every year, that you could be prepared for each and every year before?
No, the document is completed by the CFO after closure. She has to close out all the account. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes into the completion of the AFS.
It just seems that if private industry worked the way the government, obviously private industry has a better budgeting platform to be able to do what they do as opposed to government, because government has that reputation for not really handling much of anything really well, not just local, state, federal. But it just seems that there has to be some shift, that when you're doing it in February, March, April, and it doesn't come before this council till April, that you couldn't bring some of those items back, begin to anticipate, as you always do, what you may have coming in revenue. I certainly wouldn't rely on the state for what they're going to contribute, because you pointed out through the years, we never know what we're going to get. Expect zero. I mean, we're not thinking that the state's going to come through in any quality way for municipalities. They're going to have their future problems. We may have our future problems based on what they do. But it just seems odd that every year we're talking about a budget that goes, we're 3, 4, and 5 months into that year, and you're discussing a budget where we've already got money going out and anticipated revenues. I've always wondered why this, even when we were in fiscal year, fiscal budgets, it always ran late. I just could never see why my government can't be ahead of that. And whatever the administration sends down, you guys are always in a hurry. Oh, we got to get it done before this. The state needs this and that. I just would like to see maybe your discussion on why this can't be done leading into the year, like we have to do with our household budgets and businesses have to do with their business.
Because we have to close out our books so that we know what we have available to us in terms of revenue. That's
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
I think council members, I don't know if you were addressing your question to just council president or other council members, but I think you have to understand, all of you know, there's a division of government. There's the executive and legislative in our form of government. They're just legislative. So the budget is formulated under certain procedures under the guidelines in New Jersey, but it's an executive responsibility. When they have a budget that they're ready to submit, that's when they have a right to weigh in on it.
Correct.
Not before. So they can't dictate to the executive branch when you're supposed to submit your budget. They're following their regulations. The CFO follows the state regulations. The business administrator follows the state regulations. When it's time to put that budget together, whatever they're counting, and when they have it ready, then the hearings start on the legislative side.
Does the legislative branch of our local government have the right to ask for that and request the budget at a sooner date, or do we have to wait for the administration to final? We're just talking about breaking the calendar year and getting this, the conversation going on with council and their ability to vote on it. I can't imagine why the legislative branch couldn't request that at a sooner
So I
date.
can't say legally they have a right to make that demand or change procedures, but I guess they can say, what is your time frame? How are you going to address it? But I know that the budget side, the business side, has certain procedures to follow. And I don't pretend to know those. That's the CFO and the business administrator. When their books hit a certain spot, that they're ready now to start plugging those numbers in for the next budget. And they have to follow whatever extensions or mandates come from Trenton as to when they're supposed to do that performance. So, and I don't think legislative side can say, no, change that procedure and do it a different way. I don't think they have the authority to do that. I mean, they can always talk about it, but I don't think they have the authority.
Just to chime in, I think, could be wrong, but I think that the Faulkner Act Plan B spells out how that budget is prepared and how it's transmitted to council.
Correct. And it's on the executive
It's under
side.
our form of government, that's how it's done.
But under Faulkner, does Faulkner specifically address a timeline?
I don't know, I just know that it.
Would you be kind enough to check that? Because
I defer to Mr. Carter.
I would love nothing more than to see my government getting ready to vote on a budget before you're spending any money, before you're.
And I'll go through it, but to answer, I'll go through it, but it's my recollection over the years, there's nothing in there that says when the legislative side has, it just says that when it starts talking about the budget, it's talking about the mayor and business administrator, administration side that put it together.
Thank you, Mr. Carmen. Thank you, Mr. Carr. Thank you, Mr. Palmore.
All right, and
Anyone else that would like
please get back to me.
Mr. Cruz.
Good evening, Council. Paul Krug, Blackwood Estates.
Good evening.
This may have been covered in the last meeting, just trying to get up to speed. The CARES Act allocation that was given to Gloucester Township, I believe it was $180,000 for small business and somewhere in the realm of $400,000 for rental assistance, possibly mortgage assistance as well. Has it been determined the strategy there of how that we're going to get that money into the hands of the citizens?
So the second part, the rental part was $493. We have not received that funding yet as of the last meeting. Mr. Carter said,
That's correct.
so we have still not received that yet.
Right, and we had a meeting today to talk about the CARES Act. HUD requires a public hearing, and that public hearing will be set sometime in December, and that will take place by Zoom. We're looking to initiate spending of that money as of January 1st. So there will be an upcoming public hearing on that.
Okay, great. And is that only rental assistance or is that mortgage assistance as well?
I'm not sure, I'd have to get back to that.
Okay,
I believe it's rental, and what we provided at the last meeting was also information regarding what the county has provided. The county has sent me numerous emails that there are still funds available, and it is for rental assistance.
okay.
So that's on the county's website as well.
Do we have any sort of plan as to how to market that money to the folks who would need to know about it?
I'm not involved with day-to-day planning of that. I would imagine that's coordinated with the mayor's office and his social media team and the business administrator.
It does say rent/mortgage assistance.
For the second part, the 493.
Yes. Yes.
As far as the first part, the 180, that was for small business?
Mr. Carson.
I don't know if that breaks it down here, to be honest with you. No, I don't have a breakdown on that. Wish I could give you the answer on that.
Is it fair to assume none of that money has gotten out the door yet?
None of that.
Have we received the 180?
I don't want to respond to that unless I speak with the CFO.
Okay. All right.
Tom, can you reach out to Mr. Krug tomorrow and let him know? Yeah, I know the 493 we haven't received.
I believe it was just a 493.
That we have not received.
Right, I have not received. Correct.
I guess the only thing I would bring to council's attention and the attention of the administration, we have already lost a small business in downtown Blackwood with Shane Wild Fig. This is the point in which people are starting to hit the wall of desperation, and getting this money out the door, cannot be caught up in any way, in my opinion. And properly creating a strategy to make sure people know that this is a lifeline, I think, is of the utmost importance. So whatever PR marketing needs to happen, I appreciate that it's going to happen January 1st, but certainly preparation and a strategy going into January 1st, I think, is of the utmost importance as well.
That's what we'll work on now.
Okay, appreciate that.
And does the clerk have your contact information?
I believe so.
I'll send it to you. Okay.
The other thing for this evening, obviously, we're running up to the end of the year and holiday season. I know the next several meetings coincide with some holidays, so not going to be sure about my ability to attend, which kind of has me looking out a little bit further into early next year, which will mark 2 years of me making a concerted effort to come to these meetings. And I reflected on that and ended up in a little bit of a disappointed place due to the state of downtown Blackwood, which has been a project of mine and brought to the attention almost 2 years ago now, and off of a 16-year-old plan. We've actually somewhat moved backwards with the augmented reality, no longer being in downtown, losing Shayna's Wild Fig, not being able to get Revolution Barber Company into an area that needs it. So I was hoping to hear maybe why I should be a little bit more upbeat 2 years after having started coming here.
Well, I think you should. I really do. I think you've got a tremendous amount of energy. And that's good. I think right now we're dealing with, the pandemic-related collateral consequences of small businesses trying to survive, let alone new businesses such as Nick trying to come in. So I think we're in a bad spot right now, but I think there's a bright future. And I've talked to many people. I've encouraged them to include you in this process, and I haven't met any resistance on that. So keep it up. Seriously, I mean, anybody who has an interest, I'm involving.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate Nicholas. I did have a conversation with him after you texted me after the last meeting. I appreciate you including me there. I guess I'm talking a little bit more from execution of the plan or the strategy as to how we turn the tide down there from a township perspective or a community perspective. And if there's anything specific we can point to from the last year. I know we did have the grant. I hope that does come through, but just a hope at this point.
Where do we stand on the plan? What is it, TMO Associates?
They were supposed to be here at our workshop last Monday. They had to cancel, so most likely they may be here in December. With that, Mr. Krieger, time's up. I'm sorry.
Can I just answer, real quick, with an update on Revolution Barber? I talked to, Gabby in the mayor's office, and the last step that they were aware of where it was left, to her knowledge, was there was information that needed licensing from the state, not from the township, from the state. And, as far as she knew, Courtney was handling that with the state. Until we brought it to her attention, that was the first time that they had heard there was a problem. I did speak to Courtney, and she confirmed that, and she said, I said you were inquiring, so if you want to reach out to her, you can.
Okay. May I respond or?
Or you can speak offline after, please.
Oh,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Mr. Brown?
Dave Brown, Mulberry Station. I haven't been here in a while. Been very busy with everything that's been going on like everybody else. A bunch of us in our neighborhood have been sending letters to the mayor and everything about our playground. 7 years ago, 14 of us came in here and discussed it. And the rec department came out, weed eated the playground, put mulch down, and painted it a drab color. Didn't do anything about the sharp edges or anything like that. A bunch of us in the neighborhood went out and got some nice color paint, repainted it. Where the sharp edges were, the rec department put duct tape over it. We're still having the problem. 7 years later, grass is in through the mulch again. The mulch pretty much isn't there. Anything, we were told we were getting a new playground 7 years ago. They were going to do what they could to get it at least usable. I know this year it's been a bad year anyway, but is there any updates about our playground?
Mr. Carson, I'm going to defer to you.
We have fielded the letters and complaints. Gabby has forwarded those to both myself and the mayor. We have discussed it. It is definitely going to be listed on our capital budget next year. But right now, as you know, we're not doing anything with capital except for the mandatory things that we've done.
In the interim, can we go out there and assess, the edges? And
I did. I brought it up to Bill Fagan.
but it has had someone going out there and assessed it.
My understanding is they have. I'll have them look at it again.
I'll look at it. I haven't been able to been out there because I'm working till dark for the last few weeks. So
Dave, is it being used? I know that some of our playgrounds are underutilized.
we've gotten some new people in the neighborhood with younger kids. So it is something that will be used more since we are bringing new, younger people into the neighborhood.
Okay. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Good seeing you again.
I'll send them out tomorrow.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Sweet.
Evening, Council. Sam Sweet from Ariel.
Good evening, sir.
Has the Nike base sold? Did it go to closing?
Yes,
It did?
Yep.
Okay. For the million?
we have the money.
Okay, just million.
100,000 was the down payment, which we had, and they paid us the 900,000, which is the balance.
What about the environmental assessment that they were supposed to provide that we don't have?
Well, I understand contractually, they wanted a contingency to give them a right to terminate the contract. And that contingency was, if I recall correctly, I don't have it in front of me, they had 45 days to do a phase one study or any other environmental study that they wanted to do. And they had, if they did that study, they had to provide it to the town. But that was for their benefit, because if they found something that they thought they wanted to terminate the contract, we had to see that contingency met first. That's why it said 45 days to provide that report. If they didn't do it or they didn't provide it, the contingency goes away and they buy it.
Okay, so did they do it or?
I have no idea. Nothing that I know came in, at least discussion. So they chose not to do it, or if they did
It's on
it
them.
and they were satisfied with it, they didn't have to provide it to the town. That was only for their benefit contractually, to give them the right to terminate. It's just like you buying a home, it's under a contingency for a home inspection. And you have 10 days or 15 days to do that. If you don't do it, you don't provide any report. If you do it and you provide a report, your purpose is to say, these are the issues that I don't want to buy this property. That's how that phase one contingency, 45 days.
Understood. Okay, thank you. The armor grant, it looks like on this, it was on the agenda.
What?
The body armor grant was being removed.
That was withdrawn from the revenue item?
It was being withdrawn from the revenue item, 11,000.
Yeah, it very well may be that what she did was she anticipated that in the budget when she put it together, and she missed it. She had anticipated it already, so that's why she pulled it off. See, once it's anticipated, that's really what chapter 159 does. It brings money that comes along after the adoption of the budget and allows you to insert it into the budget. So what probably happened was she thought she needed a 159 because it wasn't in the budget, but it was actually already in the budget.
Can I get clarification, not clarification, but
Yeah.
just send me it if that's what you did?
I'll have her email.
Cool, thank you. The last meeting, we had 379,000, I believe, for Johnson Road.
I gave you a
I
breakdown. sent
no,
you
I
an
understand
email
that, I understand that, I just had some questions.
I would pose those questions to Mr. Chapman.
So is the project done?
Project's construction is complete, yes. We're waiting a maintenance bond before we officially close out the project.
And what is a maintenance bond?
Maintenance bond is, after construction is complete, it's a 2-year maintenance bond, so that if there's any defects or roadway cracks or something sticking at a trench, if there's any inlets, it's to come back and we can pull against that bond in order to, so that the township's not spending their funds, they can correct any issues.
Okay, now, I think this is more a question for you, Mr. Cardis. The Johnson Road only appeared on the capital budgets for design, engineering and design. There was no actual construction. So where did the money come to pay for the construction? Did it come from another job that was over borrowed or overfunded? So then where, it's not on the capital budgets. The only thing that's on there is,
The municipal aid, so it's the 2020 municipal aid.
but the work was done in like 18 and 19, correct? For Johnson Road.
That was completed this year.
Yeah, this year, right?
It was all done in 1 year?
Yeah.
So we got the aid now, and now we're gonna pay it back? Or pay who needs to be paid?
this year, and we design it, construct it, we try to get it done.
Okay, all right, so then that answers that. For my last question is, you said that the appropriations going to the budget can't be done until the AFS is done, which is sometime in February, needs to be looked at and all that. But you said the appropriations is already started?
Oh, yeah.
Can the appropriations be released before February, or is that part of the AFS, or can we look at our preliminary numbers for the appropriations since we're 10 months in?
No, I would put a budget together and then release that budget. I'm not gonna put out a list of appropriations, because they get fine tuned as we go along. Like I said, one of the biggest components in this budget is gonna be the solid waste contract for collection and disposal. I don't know what that is yet. We have bids coming in on the 24th of November, and we've got to figure out what we're gonna do.
Well, but I mean, in like December, if we have 11 and a half months,
I'm not gonna put a half a budget together.
I'm not asking for half a budget.
That's what you're asking.
No, I'm asking for the appropriations that have been spent.
No, I'm not gonna put those out. I'm gonna put a budget out based on the state budget guidelines, and hopefully we get ours out earlier than the deadline.
So if I wanted to know what was spent on office supplies for the police department in 2020,
You can open that, you can open that.
Okay, can I open
It would
all
only
the-
be up to the point in time that in the fiscal year, which we're almost to the end of it, you would only get information up through November 11th.
yeah, okay, but I could, so in December, I could do that.
You have done that before, I think.
I haven't done it this
Or
early.
maybe Pete has.
I have not done it this early. I was just wondering if it,
You could get a report of expenses, and she would produce that out of the admin system.
okay.
It's just basically a detail of all expenses.
Right. But the only thing I warn on it is that she has the opportunity to do transfers before year end. So that document's not going to reflect those transfers. She has to balance that budget by year end.
But it gives us an idea.
Gives you an idea, but again, there will be money moving around.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Sweet. Is there anyone else?
Mr. Corliss, is there
The gentleman in the back, you're the last speaker for our second public portion.
Sorry.
Is there any way that we could have it so that taxpayers could access the information on Edmonds without having to make an open request?
I don't know if we can do that.
Procedurally, I would advise it should be open.
Okay.
Because there's a document, time limit, and tracking.
Sorry for taking your time. I apologize.
Evening, everybody. Ray Henry. I live on Camden Avenue. I'm sure some of you may not recognize the face. I'm the one that blasted an email out to the state, the county, and about the retention pond next to my house. Looking at the resolutions, I was just curious as to, in June, I think an engineer had come out and looked at it and told me and my neighbor that it needs to be backhoed, everything needs to be pulled out, and she would CC me on all the emails. And we're in November now, and I'm that person. I'll give you enough rope to hang yourselves. I'm at 3 years with this. I know the construction next to my house and other two properties that Kajeski owned are now under construction, and people are building on it. I don't know whatever happened to his bond. The street's still jacked up. The retention pond's not being maintained. I'm beating giant groundhogs out of my yard from my animals. I had a raccoon come in. There's deer in my front yard. Like, at what point as a resident do I get irritated and had enough? So, I don't know if you're the engineer or if you're a part of the engineer company, but I'm kind of at my limits because the fence is falling back down again, and it's one thing after another. And now my property's eroding because of the way the runoff is and the drainage from every other street onto mine. It's backed up with leaves that run down from Coles Road all the way down my street into the drain out front of my house. It's still flooding. The asphalt that the township put in front of my driveway has completely eroded back to the original way it was. Like, I'm retired. I'm supposed to be enjoying myself, and I can't. And I moved to the township because everybody spoke well at the township. Well, at this point, this is just, I'm actually looking to get out now. Because this is ridiculous. This is insane that I'm still at this 6 years later. Like, whose desk do I got to jump up and down on to get somebody to do something? Because at this point, I'm looking at trying to take somebody's job up there to get things done for this township. Because as far as I see it, nobody works, but everybody's getting paid. Like, what do I got to do?
Mr. Henry, you said you were waiting to receive an email from an engineer. She's gonna copy you on everything?
That was back in June.
Okay. What was the engineer's name?
It was a female. I don't remember her name.
Female. You know the engineering company?
I do not. She said she was with the township and that she was with the engineering company and that she would CC me. And then maybe 2 weeks later, somebody came out with a measuring stick and was looking down at the other end of the drain. And that's the last I seen
And she was gonna CC you on drainage issues?
on whatever the outcome was going to be and what people were going to do
It was
to
like
resolve.
CES.
Is this Camden?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Carr, is she aware of any of this?
No, I would hope that, the clerk will get his contact information. I can reach out to Marie at CES.
Okay.
That's what he's talking about.
Mr. Henry,
I'm past giving my information to people.
Okay,
As
well,
far as I know
Alright.
and see, communication is far and few between.
Is this a township issue? That's what I gotta figure out right now.
Yes, because Kojeski,
Let me just comment something, man. Has not
can you
been
stop my
resolved.
time?
There were some title issues, because it first came in when a mortgage company that took over the development.
we'll give you your time, sir.
Mortgage company that took over the development was purchasing the lots that were remaining. And I believe they took them over to foreclosure. And they did not accept responsibility for the basin, even though they were taking over the development, because they say the basin was sold to another property owner. And after that property owner realized that that basin was not to be sold, they deeded that basin back, but they deeded that after the developer went through bankruptcy. So I know there was an issue, and I believe the homes that are being built out there now were purchased by the mortgage company through foreclosure. They were gonna bail out, but apparently they purchased it. They were gonna get back to my office to see what they did and provide a title report, but they never did that. Initially, I was determined that that basin was sold before to a property owner, probably by error, by that developer. This is just a guess on my part, because I didn't study the title report, it didn't come to the township. But that's what I think happened with that basin, that there's an issue out there.
Dave, is this a township issue? I mean, is it our liability? Because if it's our liability, we should be able to remedy it.
Well, I asked Mary Ann, the legal department, to reach out to Ken and see if she could get the development plans for me to look at.
Right.
To see what the approval was for that basin on the development. Was it to be a homeowners association? Was it to be township responsibility? Those things I don't know. And I wanted to see that before anything developed, but apparently that mortgage company went forward and just ignored it. Because they never got back to me on any other issue.
So this is my point, okay? You're up here and you're suggesting that we're doing a bad job, okay? That's what you're suggesting right here. And I'm asking you, is this something that this body should be spending the taxpayers' money on to help you remedy the situation? If it is our responsibility, then we got to do something about it. But if it isn't,
Well, it's a health issue.
well, but hold on a second. But there are a lot of health issues. Okay, I'm not going to spend taxpayer money on a health issue that is not appropriately spent by this body. But if it is, I'm going to be championing your cause.
Well, for the last 6 years, I've gotten different stories.
Well,
And what I'm saying is, so when I first moved in, when I first went to buy the house, it was originally supposed to be a part of my property. And because you can't assign a detention basin to a property,
You're the property owner on the
I
plan.
am eight,
So when I say-
I'm 815. It's now 820
So
or something
what I'm
like that.
saying is correct, and that basin was deeded to you when you purchased your house.
It was subdivided for my
Then
property.
it was taken off.
Yes.
Yeah, so that.
And it was
I think
given
that's-
back to Kojeski because
Right.
He was the property builder.
And that created a big confusion out there, because then I think he went bankrupt. And when he finished his bankruptcy, and I don't know bankruptcy, but when he finished his bankruptcy, the mortgage company took the remaining lots and they were selling them.
It was up for tax sale.
And it's, I would imagine if I'm looking at your lot, it's the lots on the other side.
It's the lot to the right of the house.
And they were taking those two lots, and the issue came up on that basin. And that's when they told me, and I looked at the initial report, and I didn't do a study on it, but I said, it looks like that basin was sold to you, and that was probably by error, then deeded out, but he already went bankrupt. So but that basin now is floating out there. So what I was trying to determine if the issue came back, I told Mary Ann in the office to check with Ken Lettner as to who had the responsibility. Was it to be a homeowners association, or was it to be dedicated to the town as a responsibility? And I don't think that information.
It was supposed to be a homeowners association, but at the time, there was only 3 houses.
So let me ask you a question, because I know that we've had basin issues in the past. I mean, clearly the township can't take responsibility for every basin in the town. Otherwise, taxes are gonna go through the roof. Okay, if a homeowners association was supposed to be responsible for this basin, and there is no homeowners association, what do we do?
The problem you have is the planning board, when they granted that subdivision, with that developer, granted it on the condition that there would be a homeowners association, and the homeowners association would have the responsibility of maintenance of the basin, and they would pay homeowners dues.
Yes.
And somehow that lost its direction, and he went bankrupt, and he had already deeded it to you. And then I guess they caught up with that and subdivided it out.
It was before I final.
Correct.
It had to be subdivided, like, it was like.
They had to take it back out again because it was an error. I don't know how that could happen. But anyway, those are the things that got a little convoluted that probably brings it to the problem today is what's happening with that basin. Because probably the township records show that that basin belongs to a homeowners association.
Can we get this, can we have an update at the next workshop meeting?
Yeah, I'll follow up on
Because I do know there was a bond. And
You're a
that's
former Marine?
Army,
You former Army?
retired.
Thank you. And it may sound like I'm giving you a hard time. I'm not. If you're gonna sit up here and you point the finger at me, I wanna know I'm responsible for it, you know? But maybe you come to the next workshop, Dave can have something for us at the next workshop. You know, if it's our responsibility, we're gonna jump on it, okay? But if it's not our responsibility, I don't know what to tell you.
So I'll have, it might involve looking at that title report or requesting a title company to give us a title report on that. So that title report together with the planning board's direction, which is really the only thing the township knows, how that was to be handled, and then where it is today legally, because the bank just ignored it, sold those other 2 houses, I would guess, because they never got back to my office. But at the workshop
house was the
meeting,
last
I'll
house
be able to
passed.
give you a report.
Okay. And in the meantime, Tom, I'll reach out to you, see if you have anything. I know when you came here before, Mr. Henry, you had issues with snakes.
Still got them.
And I remember that. I don't.
It's
As a
gotten
body
drastically
here-
worse.
As a body here, we're not aware of the level of the issue that they're having there. So if you do want to provide your contact information, we'll follow up. I'm going to follow up anyway. So if you want to provide it to the clerk, please provide it. If not, I'll find your
And
contact.
if I provided, I at least, like somebody to contact me, because the last time nobody contacted me, which is why when the fence blew down in June during the big storm, I lost it and just blasted everybody on an email and said, I welcome anybody to come out and look at the crap that I got to deal with, because the thing hasn't drained since I've lived there. And he stopped maintaining it. Now there's cattails. It's like a wildlife preserve. Like you could look in my backyard and it's like going to the zoo or a wildlife safari. And I'm to the point I'm just going to start. I got to start knocking animals off. I mean, it's not safe. I have a Yorkshire Terrier, a miniature Yorkie that's my service dog. Like I can't let him out in my yard and have to go out there and chase him around and make sure he's okay. I mean, this isn't what I retired for.
The first Monday in December, we have a workshop. Stop by.
You didn't give your contact information to her? The clerk right here, Scott? For that, we'll go to the second public portion. Polling of directors, Mr. Carter.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cardis.
Nothing to report.
Chief Harkins.
Just want to report that we're starting the mayor's toy drive, as you see lit up out front. Toys can be dropped off at the police watch desk. Since the building is closed, we're collecting. You can see we have a start up there. I'm sure we're gonna have a big need this year. We're working with the mayor's office about trying to coordinate where the toys go to the needs. Places like Target, that typically does our shop with a cop, corporately are not doing those events this year because of the pandemic. So we're coming up with an alternative, and we'll certainly let council know when those plans get solidified. But we're always taking the toys. We're starting the drive now because we think there's a great need to get it to kids by the holidays. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chadwell.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Hudson.
Thank you very much for coming tonight, and I enjoyed the lively debate.
Ms. Grace.
Thank you for coming tonight, and I just wanted to say to Mr. Group, I hear you when you say it's, 2 years is a long time, and it can be. But my question, and I just want you to think about having someone that you partner with in your community, someone that shares your vision, because someone that shares your vision, you're gonna be able to bounce off good ideas, bad ideas, and take action on those ideas and bring those ideas back to the council. My mentor always told me, whenever I'm talking about a problem, to bring two solutions with me. And I try to do that in everything that I do. It's not easy what you're doing, but still have the passion for your community because it can be revived. So keep doing what you're doing and do not give up, okay?
Mr. Leon?
Thank you for coming, and everyone, please be safe going home. Good night.
Mrs. Winters?
I want to thank everyone for coming in their comments, and just as I do every meeting, remind everyone, COVID cases are on the rise again, so please protect yourselves. Please be careful with the holidays coming, and with the nice weather, stay outside, don't group inside. That's where they're finding that it's happening, the spread is occurring is during small gatherings indoors. So please be careful, please protect yourselves, and in turn, you're protecting everyone else and those that you love.
Mr. Jordan? Thank you all. Have a good night. Mr. Mercado?
Thank you for coming out this evening, everyone. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
In a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Have a great evening, everyone.